everyone, my name is Mira and I will start with introduction to our topic. Our group will discuss about the worst aviation incident in history, the Tenerife Airport Disaster. On March 27, 1977, two Boeing 747 passenger jets, KLM Flight 4805 and Pan Am Flight 1736, collided on the runway at Los Rodeos Airport, which now is Tenerife North Airport, on the Spanish island of Tenerife, Canary Islands, killing 583 people. At 1 p.m., the airport of Gran Canaria received an anonymous telephone call to inform that a bomb had been planted in the terminal. 15 minutes later, one of the bombs exploded, injuring 8 people in the process. And due to this, the authorities temporarily shut down the airport for the next few hours, which meant all incoming traffic had to divert to other airports. For the next few hours, the passengers on board of the KLM plane disembarked into the terminal during the delay. Los Rodeos Airport location makes it prone to rapid changes in weather and visibility, and on that day, the weather changed and visibility decreased. During the time on the ground, the KLM crew discussed their return journey back, and since KLM have strict rule on crew working time, Captain Van Santen of the KLM flight ordered the refueling of the plane in Tenerife in order to make up for the lost time. My friend Luham will continue from here.
The airport at Gran Canaria reopened later in the day, and the ATC at Tenerife set about trying to get all of their planes out of the airport.
At this time, a thick fog begins to envelop the airport and visibility decreases, and due to this, those at the control tower could not see the end of runway. The best way for both KLM and Pan Am planes to go out of the airport was that the KLM plane would first enter runway 12 and backtrack the full length of runway. Then it will turn and hold position on runway 30 until it receives clearance for takeoff. Meanwhile, the Pan Am plane would also backtrack the runway, but vacating via the Charlie 4 taxiway onto Romeo, where they could continue their taxi to end of the runway, allowing for efficient departure of the two planes. The ATC informed the Pan Am that once they entered the runway, they were to leave the runway on the third exit. However, a communication error left the crew uncertain on what the ATC said, even though the ATC repeated it. But looking at the airport charts during their taxi down the runway, it resulted in confusion since the third exit would indicate Charlie 3. However, this was clearly an unsuitable exit for the plane, and following exit Charlie 4 would seem as a better fit. But due to the low visibility, the Pan Am plane passed Charlie 3 and headed towards Charlie 4. Next, my friend Jeevitha will continue.
Once KLM plane was in position at the end of the runway facing down in the reciprocal direction on runway 30, captain of KLM plane without any authorization to take off begins to power up the plane until first officer Mers reminds him that he needs clearance first. KLM flight needs ATC clearance to fly the route out of Tenerife. The controller then sends clearance to the KLM crew. This clearance is only to fly the route and not take off clearance, and they were to wait until the Pan Am plane were to clear off the runway. But despite this, the captain throttled up his plane anyway. And after this, due to a few miscommunication error between Pan Am crew, the KLM crew, and the ATC tower, the captain of the KLM was accelerating the plane down the runway, thinking it's clear, while the Pan Am was still taxiing down the runway. Due to the poor visibility, the crew of KLM only seen the glow of the landing light of the approaching plane while both were closing in. Captain of KLM flight, seeing this, pulls back on his control column in a desperate attempt to get his plane to fly. The nose of the plane slowly lifts up while tail scrapes the runway. Thank you. Next will be my friend Amir.
The captain of the Pan Am, seeing the incoming KLM plane, tries to turn his plane left on the Charlie 4 taxiway. The KLM plane did manage to get airborne, but the underside struck the top of the Pan Am plane. The right wing demolished the entire cabin of the hump of the Pan Am 747. Remaining airborne for a few seconds, the KLM 747 comes back down and crashes much farther down the runway, engulfed in flames and killing all 284 occupants on board. And during this time, the Panam plane continues to burn on the ground while passengers and crew try to flee. The whole Panam crew survived, but sadly 335 passengers perished. Due to the low visibility, those at the ATC could not see that two planes had crashed on the runway. It took another plane that was flying above the airport to report back to the tower. They could see fire and smoke on the ground. It took 20 minutes for fire and rescue to reach the Panam plane. So next will be my friend Julia.
Everyone, my name is Putri Giovanny and I am holding metric card number DAM1911644. So, last but not least, the professionals investigating the instance cited the KLM plane's captain's action as the primary cause of the crash. And this is because all other variables which led to the crash were unavoidable and coincidental. These variables meaning the terrorist attack at the Gran Canaria, the diversion of several large airlines to a much smaller airport, and the degrading weather situation. In the wake of this disaster, cockpit crew members under the captain were given more authority in the cockpit. Crew resource management became a core philosophy of the skies, and captains are now to encourage other crew members and give them more input in the flight deck. That's all from me. That's all from us. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Have a good day, and I hope to see you guys soon in the next video project. Bye bye.